Overtime.
And welcome back to Overtime, here as part of our Pacific Grandstand show here on 531 PI, the station bringing Pacific people together. I'm your host, Willie Poching. I've been away for a couple of weeks. I just want to say, before we kick off, a huge thanks to Aaron Ryan, who stepped in, took the show to a bit of a different direction. But thanks nonetheless to the TMO for stepping up. As I said, I'm your host, Willie Poching.
I'm Matt Manukor, and welcome back, Willie. Good to have you back, bro. It's been a struggle trying to be the anchor since you've been gone, man. We've seen online there's a lot of bloopers to come out of the 2 weeks that you've been gone. And for everyone who did the hashtag Bring Back Willie, we've got our man back in the studio, so welcome back, brother.
Some high shenanigans.
Yep.
From what I saw, plenty of laughter. Awesome to see.
Yeah.
It was great. Just been back down to Dunedin.
Been away.
Good.
Been away. Went and spent some time down there for Otago Polyfest. We also spent some good time with some family. It's a good place to go and have a bit of R&R and also just catch up with some of my old colleagues, some of my old friends, and be back in a space. It was a lot colder down there than it is up in Auckland, but it was quite peaceful and good to reset before the end of the year kicks in. Yourself, how was Australia, man?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was nice to get back to my wife's family and spend a bit of time up in Townsville, a bit of family stuff over there, but it was warm. And come back to the cold and the wet, a bit of a shock, but it's lovely to be home. It was a nice time, but nice to be back here and back at work on the grind again.
Yeah, man.
And Otago for you, a bit of a second home.
Yeah, it is, bro. It's a second home for me. It's where my career sort of blossomed. It's where I learned my learned independence and where I learned a lot about myself as well, just being away from Auckland. Also played some rugby league down there for the Otago University Rugby League Club, so it was good to right in the heart of rugby country. You get some good opportunity to celebrate rugby league down there. But yeah, just all in all, it's a second home for me, and it's somewhere that the community I love being around. And yeah, I got to visit some of my old colleagues and just to see what's happening down there. Nothing much changes down there, bro. It's a really slow, really island type lifestyle down there. It's attractive for a lot of our Pacifica community.
That's awesome, but we won't dig into it too much about your time in Otago, because over the next couple of weeks, we're going to take a different spin on the show. We've had some amazing guests. We've been able to sit down and get to know some different people from some different walks of life and their involvement in sport. What we're going to do over the next couple of weeks is we're going to interview each other.
Yeah.
We're going to give the audience, give our viewers a little bit of an insight to each other. And today, at your request, we're going to start with yourself interviewing me and give an insight to our viewers, as I said, who I am and a bit of my story. And then next week, we'll chop it up about yourself and talk about the path that you've traveled to get here. So, yeah, as I said to you, Matty, I'm an open book. It's awesome to be here and look forward to divulging and unfolding some of my story.
Man, exciting when Willie brought this opportunity up to interview him and to flip the cameras or flip the attention on towards the two hosts. I thought that was a great opportunity. I know when you first came into PMN, bro, and onto 531 PI, I was surprised because they talked about a rugby league legend being in our midst and being here amongst the community. And even back in last year, bro, I was doing all my research. It's like, man, who is this guy, and why is everyone like so excited to see who he is? And then what I learned, and also what I've learned throughout my time working with you, bro, is that, man, you are a legend, bro, and you have a wealth of knowledge in both sports and also rugby league and all things around you. You got a heart for your community as well, and also a heart for our people too. So it's great, and it's an honor to be joined by you on the Overtime podcast, bro. And I'm just excited to get stuck into to learn a bit about your journey, bro. And so first of all, tell us a little bit about your upbringing, bro, where you're from, and a little bit about upbringing, where you're from, how you got into sports, and we'll go from there.
Firstly, nothing against what you said, but it sits uncomfortably with me, the legends. I was very fortunate to be around sport for a long time, and it's given me a lot, and just try and give back. Now I've been able to rub shoulders and play with and be around some real legends. So I'm not sure if I'm in that, but thank you very much, Matty. I started off playing at Marist Rugby League Club. I started off as a ball boy.
Oh, wow.
In fact, at 3. And our story, and I say our family story at Marist started with my dad. My dad was an athlete. He was a sprinter. He ran for a club that was run by a gentleman by the name of Ross Lipscomb. Now, if anybody who knows Marist Rugby League knows the name Ross Lipscomb, because he was synonymous with the club itself. So not only was he involved with athletics, he was heavily involved with rugby league. He saw something in my dad and asked him to come down to the club and play. My dad went down there, fell in love with it. Hence how we got involved. The rest of our family, my uncles, and my cousins, my brother, my sister, and my brother-in-law, and now her daughters have been involved and played there as well, and sons. So it's a real family thing. And that started for me when I was 3. Dad was coaching the under-19s and then into the reserve grade. And I started off as a mascot and then a ball boy. Started playing at 5. Typical of a 5-year-old. Those days, they used to have games at Carlaw Park and kids used to play at halftime. And there's a photo somewhere, my uncle took a photo, I remember it, of me getting the ball running the wrong way. So that was my first memory of actually playing a game. And that was where it all started. So, yeah, I spent up until I was 18 at Marist. So that's my childhood club. That's how my rugby league journey began. I grew up in Massey for a little while and then moved into Mount Eden, but predominantly lived around Ponsonby, grew up around Central. That was the old school Ponsonby. That was the hood Ponsonby, not the Ponsonby of today. I was living in Ponsonby during the transitional years as it started to change. And then Mum and Dad bought a house in Mount Albert and we moved to there, and then my journey went overseas. And so that was where my grounding was. Went to a few primary schools, too many to mention, but predominantly Mags was my school. I went to Pasadena Intermediate and Normal Intermediate. But yeah, Mags was the one school I spent most of the time at, and proud to be an Albertan.
Nice. So you guys grew up in Greyland. Richmond was never a club that you guys wanted to go towards, or Marist was always the first option?
No, well, as I said, Dad really got involved with Marist from the outset. And even though we grew up around the Ponsonby, Greyland area, and all my mates and neighbours and school friends all played at Richmond, and my best mate to this day was a Richmond boy, and we bypassed it. We were always entrenched in the green and gold, and never ever had any thought of leaving the club. So Mum and Dad, or Dad, when they first came over, they lived in Eden Terrace, and that was probably closest to either City Newton or Richmond, and one of my uncles ended up playing for City Newton for a little bit. But as I say, Marist was our club. Marist was where we were, and that was our family identity was carved at Marist.
Yeah, that's cool, because I know I lived around the corner from Marist. Obviously, I'm from Mount Albert Lions, so the rival club as we call it in the central and Mount Albert area. But during that time when you were growing up, was there a boom in Pacific families involved in the club at Marist alongside you, or was it sprinkled, a Pacific community sprinkled throughout grades in the club?
No, yeah, I remember from being that 3-year-old, seeing the teams that my dad was coaching. That was heavily influenced by Pacifica players, Māori and Pacifica, and Balinese. There was a diverse spread of ethnicities within the teams, and that was the same when I started. And I grew up with all ethnicities playing at Marist. That was a fair representation, I reckon, of the area, and we had a lot of island boys that lived actually on the field. The houses around the field there that have all gone now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but such as time, places change and they've moved on, and even that's affected the cultural diversity of the area has changed, but back then, yeah, we had Cook Islanders, we had Tongans, we had Māoris, we had the Samoan boys, we had heaps of Palingis. We even had a couple of Chinese come down and play for a little while. So yeah, it was cool. Dad always said to us that rugby league was a game for everyone, every ethnicity and every body shape. In particular, he said it was perfect for Pacific Islanders. He said, rugby union, we don't have many tall locks. We didn't have many tall athletes like that, but rugby league was perfect for the Pacific Islander. And I think that when you look at the NRL now, that's sort of come true.
Yeah, and coming off the back of embarrassing and sticking with your upbringing, bro, was there any stories or any highlights of your memories during your time in junior grades? Because obviously, we know that you've and we'll delve in a bit about it afterwards. But you went into the professional realm and you had a pattern career in professional rugby league. But for the time being in junior rugby league, where a lot of our Pacific hopefuls are, they try and lay the foundation there. Was there anything in particular that stood out for you during your time in junior grades?
When you think back and you put yourself in that time, it's the fun you have with your mates.
Yeah.
And I've got some mates to this day that we started off at 5-6 years old together. And they're still involved in one way or another in the game around the world. But we grew up every weekend together. Our families and our parents were entrenched in the club and were members of the board, and they were committee members. But when I look back at it now, probably one highlight for me, and I didn't realise this until afterwards, and you reflect and you look back, just how important the game was to affecting people's lives in such a positive way. It can be a pretty rough area around Marist, around Owaraka, around that area, and people do it tough. But you look at some of the players that have come through the club and have gone on to be so successful, predominantly in the rugby league field. I'm talking about Motutoni, Roy Asotasi, Sonny Bill Williams, guys that were younger than us. But the amount of Kiwis that have come out of that club and guys that have gone on to have really successful careers through the positivity of being involved in the game and through the positivity of coming through that club, I think that's a real highlight for me. And we had a good friend of mine who, and I didn't realise it at the time, and this is one thing I loved about what Dad did, and I did realise it at the time. He'd finish work, he'd start work at 5:30, finish work at 4 o'clock, and just immediately go around and pick all the boys up in our team. We had a work van. We had one fella in Otara, and he'd come all the way out to Otara, pick him up, and then we'd do the Mount Roskill run, a couple in Avondale, and it was awesome. It was fun. The back of that van, we used to laugh and joke, and after training, we'd drop them all off again. And sometimes we wouldn't get home till 8:30, 9 o'clock. So Dad's day started at 5:30, but it was nothing to him. He did it year on. And it wasn't until the fella that was from Otara came to Dad's funeral and he spoke afterwards about how he felt that Dad saved his life. He gave him that purpose, that reasoning, and he affected his life in such a positive way. That's the highlight for me of what the game does for people and what it can do, and the impact that my dad had. And that's a real lesson for us. I'm so proud of my dad because he was always about service, and that's just a small example of what he did for my mates, the young players in our team. Hey, they were damn good players, and Dad would go all over the place to pick them up.
Yeah.
but he also understood the impact that it had on them as young people.
Yeah, definitely, bro. Thanks for that, man. That sounds good. It takes me back to when I was in junior rugby league, bro, and the importance of parents and the importance of that support system, for players and for the boys, or for the camaraderie within the team as well, or within the club as well. It's the heart of a lot of the clubs around in these junior rugby league clubs, especially because you get these kids right at the young age, and where their passion is blooming for the sport, and when they get nurtured in that type of way, it often leads them to long careers, like you've mentioned, but also just a more fruitful life, that they know that someone's looking out for them. And in this case, it was your dad. So huge thank you to your dad, and congratulations, because that's a huge legacy that they leave with the amount of support that they give these boys. Now, just lastly, bro, sticking on the topic of Marist, what does that club mean to you in terms of how it's helped your career, just setting up that foundation?
Yeah, I'm indebted to the club pretty much my journey in life. And I've been very lucky to have had a life in the game. I got to go to Brisbane, where I met my wife, and in turn we had our family. And because I became someone who was able to play for a long time and earn a living out of it, it's opened so many doors. Those were only afforded to me because of the grounding and the start that I had at Marist, and I'm forever indebted to the club for that. I had a couple of years at some other clubs afterwards. Marist was a second division team, and I was told that I had to go to a first division club, so then I went to Mount Albert, and then Northcote came and gave me an offer, and I went to there and had a great time. But for the grounding that I got, that always goes back to Marist for me, and hence why as soon as I came back, I wanted to help my brother-in-law, Simon Yeremia, who's the head coach at Marist, to help him out, but help give back to the club. I owe it to the club. I owe that to the club for what it's done for myself, but what it's done for my family, and what I know it can do for the next generation. That's what Marist means to me. Deeply heartbroken for what's happened to the clubhouse, and I just hope we can get it back up and running and get a building that can service the generation after us.
Thanks for that, brother. Beautiful club. Congratulations. What am I congratulating? Big shout out to Marist. They've helped nurture a lot of our Pacifica communities, but also propelled so many into stardom and also into professional rugby league. So huge shout out to the Marist Club, tucked away in the heart of Oiraka and Mount Albert. Now, you mentioned that you went to Northcote and Mount Albert, and then obviously that led into the start of your NRL career. Now, when you first came in, bro, someone said that you were a part of the OG 95 Warriors, the first ever Warriors team. So I don't know if that came before you played professional rugby league, or talk to us a little bit about how you went from club rugby league up into professional and your first contract that you received.
Yeah, so I think I was at Northcote when the Warriors got the tick to come into what was in the Winfield Cup, the Australian Rugby League. First overseas team ever. As a rugby league fan, I'd get up, and I worked out when I was about 13 that you could work on shortwave radio.
Yep.
And I worked out that I could pick up the Aussie games.
Oh, true.
So I'd listen in my bedroom
Yeah.
to the Aussie Rugby League. There were a couple of commentators, Peter Peters and Greg Hartley's over in Hollywood, and I'd listen to them religiously on a Sunday.
Wow.
And I didn't know really who these Penrith Panthers or Manly Sea Eagles were, but I went and brought all the magazines, the Rugby League Week, big league magazines. I used to do the crosswords and everything else. Became a rugby league nerd back then. Hence where my passion to become a player came from. So for us to have a team here in Auckland that played in that competition was huge for us. It was huge for us in Auckland. Up until then, it was just a pipe dream. I was very lucky at 17 to go to Newcastle. I got signed at Newcastle, and more naivety on our part. 3 of us went over, and it just didn't work out. we came back. And when the Warriors came in, it was perfect timing. When I came back, I ended up signing with the Auckland Rugby League, who were in charge of the Warriors at the time. And John Money, who came as the coach, he signed on to be the first ever coach in 95. He felt it was a good idea for a couple of us to go to Brisbane. He said, I want you to go to Aussie. I want you to learn about the Australian Rugby League style and what it takes to be at a Winfield Cup club and that environment. So he sent us to Brisbane, hence how I got there to start with. So I went to Brisbane 94 and the Warriors started 95 and then I came back. So, yeah, signed for the Warriors. They were the ones that sent me there, but I was always coming back for the start of 95. And, yeah, being part of that 95 team and being part of the landscape for rugby league forever changing in this country was a surreal moment. It was a surreal moment because I remember growing up at times, and I've spoken a little bit about this before. It was tough, man, being a rugby league kid growing up. We were really frowned upon. Rugby league was frowned upon to the point where if you're a rugby union player and you come to rugby league, you could never go back to rugby union.
Jeez.
That's how it was.
Oh.
They were very much amateur.
Yeah.
Because we were professional sport getting paid, that wasn't the done thing. So we've always been the little brother, little cousin, I suppose, and for us to get a team in the competition, just changed it. You know, I've really seen the impact of it since I've been back from England. The diverse range of fan has changed.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a totally different spectrum of and spread of rugby league, especially Warriors fans, which is awesome to see. It's not. I don't think I could have imagined it before the Warriors came in.
Did you you were young at the time when you signed with the Warriors, but did it feel in that locker room that the tide has changed for rugby league in New Zealand? Did you feel the monumental moments in that you guys were the first or part of the first professional rugby league team in the country that will go overseas and play overseas? Did you? And it'll set up a legacy, 20, 25 or how many years later? Did you feel that at a young age? Or
I did feel there was a bit of a shift.
Yeah.
In acceptance. We were pretty trendy, and a lot of that was down to the chief exec at the time, Ian Robson. He built up the profile of the club, and we were doing promotions all around the country and promoting the name of the club, and people were well aware of who we were. It was the first sporting team in New Zealand to be in an Australian comp, so that was huge news. And then it was about familiarising people, one, with the game and the superstars that we were signing. And we signed Dean Bell, Andy Platt, Dennis Betts, Greg Alexander, Phil Blake, legends. Those are true legends. So that helped shift some of the mindset and the profile. As I said, it was a bit of a novelty at the time for people to, what's this? This? And they built it up so much that I don't think the community had any choice but to get interested in it. So I did see and feel a shift.
And, obviously you mentioned that you went over to Newcastle, but also when you signed with the Warriors, do you remember the feeling that you had when you signed your first contract, a professional rugby league contract, and how did it feel for you?
It was awesome. Yeah, I was really proud. I remember before the team came in, before I went to the Broncos, we did a Colts tour as the Warriors under-21s over to Aussie. It was a 2-week trip, and a lot of us young fellas who'd grown up together. There was Marty Moana, Joe Vangana, Henry Paul, and a few others in the side, and we went over to Aussie. But I remember that was the first time we wore the Warriors tracksuit. Oh. We got to put on the Warriors jersey to play. That was special. That was special. To sign the first contract and be part of that group going forward was a really surreal moment as well. But yeah, special to put on the jersey for that first time. That meant a lot. It was real then. Yeah. It was real.
That's awesome. Now I'm just going to read some of your caps, bro, since your professional rugby league career. So bear with me, and you can happily correct me if I'm wrong. But after the Warriors, you went to spend some time at the North Queensland Cowboys, the Hunter Mariners, the St George Dragons, before you went overseas. So tell us a little bit about those experiences with those three clubs during your time over in Australia.
Yeah, well, 95, there was the Super League war kicked off between News Limited and Channel 9 in Australia for the rights of the game. And it was ridiculous. That changed the landscape of the earning power of the player. That's when players were getting 600 grand to $1 million for the first time ever because of the fighting. And I wasn't the best professional. I wasn't the player that I needed to be, both on and on the field, off and on the field at the Warriors at the time. And I don't have many regrets, but I wish I was a bit more mature and handled my time a little bit better at the Warriors because of some of those things that I'm talking about, the hype and everything. I got caught up in it. And so say I've got no regrets really, but if I had my time again, I'd do that differently and be here. And I would have liked to have spent a bit more time at my hometown club, but I did the year. A couple of offers came in and I got a chance to sign with a new franchise in Newcastle called the Hunter Mariners that News Limited started up on the Super League side. News Limited wanted the Newcastle Knights, but the ARL and Channel 9 got Paul Harrigan from the Knights a bus. He drove the bus and drove the team down to Sydney and signed them up with the Johns brothers there and then on the ARL side. So the Newcastle Knights were then affiliated with the ARL, but such was Newcastle as a hotbed for rugby league. News Limited won a team, so they just started their own franchise. Hence how the Hunter Mariners started. I went to the Hunter Mariners and signed with them, did a full pre-season at the end of 95, beginning of 96. The game goes to court. Super League lose the first court battle. So we got shut down. Yeah. We got told we had to go find clubs, and a lot of the players were told to go back to their previous clubs. But I knew enough then that Auckland, for my career, wasn't a good place for me. For how it was distractive was. I'd realised that I needed to move on as much as I wanted to stay. I played for Graham Lowe at the 95 World Cup, and he was coaching North Queensland. He got on the phone and we had a chat, and I went up to Townsville, had a chat to them and agreed to go play there. Worked out that my partner at my wife now, who's my girlfriend at the time, was from Townsville.
Wow. So
we got to go live up there, and I loved it. I didn't love it at the time. Yeah. It wasn't until I left Townsville that I realised, because it was just a big country town, hot as. It wasn't until I left that I realised, geez, I love this place. I really like Townsville. But I loved the season. I enjoyed my time. I learnt so much. It was probably my first full first grade season. Thanks to Lowy and the team we played. It was tough. We didn't have the most success. I think the team won its first game ever in Sydney against St George. Won a couple of games at home, but we were still fighting our feet as an organisation. But then at the end of that season, Super League and ARL go back to court. Super League wins the case, so I'm on the move again.
Yeah.
I still had a contract with the Mariners, so I had to go back to Newcastle. So off to Newcastle we toddle, go down there. The Mariners get off and running. Super League has a season. We played for them. We had a great team that Graham Murray, rest his soul, our coach, put together. We had the Edel brothers, young Scott Hill, Brett Kamali.
Legends, right?
Yeah, guys who were to go kick on.
Yeah.
And we just missed out on the playoffs, but we reached the World Club Challenge final against Brisbane here. We had to beat Wigan in the quarters. We did that at Central Park, beat Cronulla in the semis. I think Cronulla were the grand finalists that year in the Super League. And then we made the final against Brisbane, who were high flying. They were a superstar team, and we knew that was our last ever game. That the marriage between ARL and Super League was back on, and they were going to come back. Melbourne started up. Most of the team went to Melbourne, and I went to St George. I ended up in Sydney, and it was a toughish year. Coming into St George late in pre-season, after that marriage was put together and they shut the Mariners down finally, I went to St George on the back foot a little bit, making no excuses. But I suppose, looking back at the time, having to move and change clubs.
Yeah.
And in Aussie, it's not just about moving cities, it's you're moving interstate. And in my case, going from New Zealand to Australia was moving countries. We had a young family. We had a son then, and my wife was pregnant with our second one. And I knew that if I went to England, if I could get the right club and be in the right place, that we didn't have to move anymore. I wanted some stability for our family, but also the opportunity to keep playing. So I'm really lucky that I got a chance to go to Hunslet in the UK, and that gave me the stamp that I needed for a work permit. And Wakefield got promoted in 98, and then 99 I signed for Wakefield. That's where my journey in England started.
Yeah, man, that's so unreal, because often from New Zealand, tucked away in Aotearoa, and especially in Auckland for us here, Super League is a world away from us. Super League's on the Northern Hemisphere. It's so far away that the only, within arm's reach for professional career at rugby league, our youngsters, our people, and often juniors will look towards NRL. So how was, you make the move to England and get that opportunity, and obviously you stay there for over 25 years. So how was those opening years when you first went over there? Was it a shock to the system, bro? Was it a whole change? Did you get homesick? What was that like?
Oh, I'll paint the early picture like this. We were in Townsville before I signed. We just went back for Christmas and have the summer there. And being in the tropics, the kids playing outside, and they were just babies then, but they were out their nappies running around the backyard, hot as. We got to Wakefield early 1999, signed for 2 years. Kids are in jackets and stuck in the house. It's snowing. It's freezing cold. We watched the first game of the NRL season that year, and I think it was the opening at Homebush before the Olympics came in 2000. They played a double header at the Olympic Stadium, and I remember seeing it was hot as, and people with no shirts on in the crowd. The footy was awesome. We were training in mud and on wet pitches, and I said to my wife, let's do these 2 years and we'll go back. We'll do these 2 years and we'll go home. It's cold here, man. The season ended up by far better than what I imagined it would do. The team at Wakefield, as I said, were just promoted. So, like every team that just comes up, they were the favourites to go straight back down. But we had such an awesome team spirit and a real fight. I think we won our second game, lost our third, and we went on a 5-match winning run. Sixth game, I think, was against Salford, and we lost that, which we should have won probably. But our mentality changed. And we sent some shockwaves through the competition. I was feeling really confident. I was really happy playing there. The weather changed. So summer came around, and it changed my whole perspective on living there. As I said, the first season went so much better than I thought. Renegotiated with the club again, much better contract. And then as your life as a professional sportsman does, you live season to season. And that's what happened for us. We went through some dramatic times at Wakefield. The second season, we had somebody come and promise a load of money. He built a grandstand at the club. It's still there now, but then did a runner and left the club almost $1 million in debt. And the club got in such financial strife, they had to do what's called an IVA, a CBA, sorry, and the debt collectors and the creditors came in. They wanted their money that they were owed. So they told the over 24s to go upstairs, under 24s to stay downstairs. The under 24s went upstairs, told 3 of us to go in a room. Unbeknownst to us, they sacked the other over 24s. Said, your contracts are terminated straight away. We can't pay yous. The creditors need their money. The under 24s, you had to stick with your contract. To us, they said to us that we're going to give you new contracts. It wasn't any more money, but we held off for a little while, and that was a real tough time. I ended up staying at Wakey for the young kids, and I had some opportunities to go to other clubs, Leeds being one. But then the third year, we just scraped by and survived because we had no money to spend. Sorry. We had no money to spend, so we just scraped by on the last day. So going into the last day of the season, we're 1 point ahead of Huddersfield, are at the bottom of the table. Yeah. Huddersfield are playing London at home, who were third to bottom, I think. We were playing Salford, who are mid-table, at Salford. So they kicked off before us, and we get word with about 20 minutes to go that Huddersfield won. Huddersfield have won, so now we're on the bottom, and we're down by 12, I think, with half an hour, 20 minutes to go. We pulled it out of the bag.
Jeez.
We survived, and we're so happy. Nobody ever picked it. And I think that season we lost 13 in a row, which was some sort of a record. But it was just a tough year. But as tough as it was, the team spirit was amazing. Because we knew what we were. We knew we were just a team of battlers. We tried every single week. We had a coach that tried to motivate us and get us going, but it was just tough. But we got it done on the last day. 2 days later, Leeds come back in, ring me, said we'd like you to come next year. I'd already said no the year before, and I couldn't say no again. It was tough, but it was a decision that I had to make for my family. We had our third son on the way, and I had to start thinking about. I'd made that decision for the young kids and for the club, but I had to make this decision about my family, and one that I've never regretted. So on the move again.
Man, yeah, on the move again, and you head to Leeds, bro, and you obviously played more than 130 tests, I believe, for Leeds. You've become a club legend, part of folklore online when I'm did a little bit of research about you too, bro, about the infamous Willie Poching. So you spend majority, I'd say, would you agree, majority of your career at Leeds, which is one of the, if not, one of the best clubs, if not the best club in the Super League, historically. But yeah, talk to us a little bit about that experience going to Leeds and having such a long career there where you've played majority, but also you get your feet under you about how it works, rugby league works, but also, being over and playing in the Super League over there, winning a couple of championships as well too, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an eye-opener. And because of what I'd been through at Wakey. Wakey was a club where the first season we got a pair of shorts and a polo shirt. So that was to wear to games and to wear at training.
Oh, geez.
And that was all we had. You didn't get a lot, and you didn't expect a lot by the end of my time. So when I got to Leeds and we got given 2 big bags of gear and, we got looked after so well.
Yeah.
And they had a fantastic training facility, a brand new gym. They had 3 or 4 pitches that we could use for training. When we're at Wakefield, we're driving all around town trying to look for somewhere to train.
Yeah.
There was no excuse not to be successful. And I really understood the privileged position I was in, being at such an esteemed club, and a club that really went out of its way to give you the most to be successful. They had won the Challenge Cup a year or 2 before, and that was really the catalyst for the success. There was a young crop of players coming through, and the likes of Rob Burrow, Kevin Simfield was pretty much established. Chev Walker, Mark Calderwood, Danny Maguire was coming through. They're household names in England. Granted, not many here will know about, but they were to go on to be the spine of a team that won everything over the next 12 years. Tony Smith came in 2004. The club hadn't won a grand final or a championship in 32 years. Changed our mentality, changed our approach, simplified, took us back to the basics. We had, as I said, the quality of player within the group, but he really banded us together and brought the best out of those young guys. David Ferner was exceptional for us as a senior player in his last season. We went to Old Trafford to play the Bradford Bulls, who had Leslie Vainakolo and Shantane Hape. My best mate Joe Vangana was in their squad. They were the team of that time, and we came away with the win. So to get that grand final was awesome. It was something I'll never forget, and so far removed from what I could have imagined at Wakey, but it made the move to Leeds all the more worthwhile. Being able to enjoy that moment, we were able to back that up. A couple of months later, in 2005, when we played the Bulldogs, in the World Club Challenge to start the season and knock them off. So,
and that's the with all the stars in that Bulldog side.
Yeah, they had all the stars, and Sonny Bill was on fire, smashing everybody. We got out to a 20-point lead, I think, at one stage. And then the second half, they got it back to 2 points, and we're twitching. But thankfully we got it done. And to back up the grand final win with the World Club Challenge win was huge for us as an English team. And that's where I started to really fall in love with the Super League and buy into its importance. And I always say Super League wasn't a better game. It wasn't a worse game. It was just it's played differently. It's played in different conditions. It's played over a longer period. I think that year we made the Challenge Cup final. That World Club Challenge, 2005, we made the grand final and the Challenge Cup final and the World Club Challenge game. We played nearly 40 games that year, and that's unheard of here.
Yeah,
they wouldn't do that to players here. But that's what you have to go through. That's what they do. So being respectful and mindful of all that, it's just a different game. But yeah, I was fortunate to play another couple of years. I played 5 years all up at Leeds. And then thankfully I was given an opportunity to start my coaching career. And all up I spent 9 amazing years at Leeds, 4 of those as a coach. And 3 of those during a period where we went back to back and did the three-peat. 2007 with Tony Smith, and 2008, 2009 under the coaching of Brian McLennan. So yeah, it was a special time. A special group who still have a special bond. We still chat and we support each other and look out for each other, just like our captain, Kevin Sinfield, has been doing and has done for our mate Rob Burrow, who passed away with motor neurons, unfortunately losing his fight. But our captain, Kevin Sinfield, is still championing the cause, as he has done for the last 4 or 5 years, and doing his amazing feats with marathons and rides. And hoping to join in with him in November for his latest crazy little bit of fundraising.
Beautiful, bro, man. That sounds awesome. It's unreal to hear like these stories about during your time over in Super League, because like I mentioned before, it's so far off, or for us here to dream about going over to the Northern Hemisphere, especially to the UK to play rugby league over there. But we see a lot of our Pacific athletes, or athletes in general, just make the move over to the Super League, spend, 1 or 2 will spend a year or 2 there and then come back. But a lot of them, I've seen some of them spend, most of their careers and go back there. For yourself, how was that environment playing rugby league over in England? I think we mentioned it before in chats off the podcast, but the crowd, hearing the crowd buzzing behind you, and they're really passionate fans over in England too, so they make up chants in that too. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about and paint the picture of how it was in some of those intense games throughout your career.
Can be awesome, especially if you're home and your crowd is behind you. And it's awesome when you're winning. Because you quieten the other crowd up. But I remember at Leeds, when you run out of the stadium, there's what they call the South Stand. And it's a brand new stand now, but the old South Stand, it's all standing. Everyone used to stand, and there was a band in the back. And so when you ran out of the stadium as an away player, you look straight at it, and they're straight at you. They were straight at you, chanting and giving it to you, and they wouldn't stop, especially if you got behind on the scoreboard. But yeah, individuals have their own songs.
Yeah.
Alila Otiti had a song, Kailululuai had a song, and the fans have an adoration for you, and that's awesome. That's awesome when you hear a song and hear them singing your name. But yeah, it's totally different to hear, because whilst the crowds, and there may only be 2,000, 3,000 people, but it sounds like 10, 12,000 here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just go for it, singing, a bit like football, and that's the culture of the crowd over there. But I think some of the reason some of the players, especially Pacific Island players, go over there and flourish and stay there for a while is it's a lot more, I won't say relaxed, there's a lot less pressure on the individual and on the player. Especially nowadays with the NRL, there's so much scrutiny on everything that goes on. There's all the networks covering everything, and every story gets blown up, and there's a beat up about everything that a player does. Not so much over there, and the player can just focus on playing and relax and be the player that they want to. And I think a lot of the players enjoy it over there too, and I experienced some of this. Time away, especially for a young family, is bonding, because you're so far away, and it's just you and your family, brings you closer. So your network as a family tightens. I think that's another reason why some of them stay over there, and definitely a reason why we stayed over there so long. You establish a network of friends away from the game because of your kids' sporting and your kids' school and your kids' social networks, and all of a sudden you've got your own, a totally different spread of friends. And that's some of the reason why we stayed there so long. And as I said, work, you pick up jobs, it's an awesome place to live on top of that. So yeah, that's a big reason why I think a lot of players stay on after their careers are done.
You hang up the boots, after a lengthy career in rugby league. Talk to us a little about that last game, bro, and the decision to stop playing right there and head into your coaching career.
Yeah, and I probably had a feeling that I was ready to finish mentally. I was enjoying playing, but training was becoming a chore.
Oh, wow.
It was becoming hard, training-wise, and I wasn't enjoying getting up, going to training, and when training was finished, I was driving home thinking, I've got to do this all over again tomorrow. That fire had gone in me. But my actual last game was against Wakefield, crazy enough. Finished the game on the Sunday. Tuesday, I hurt my knee at training and had an operation. Doctor said, before I went under, I'll clean your knee up, you'll be back in 2 weeks. I wake up, come out of the operation, doctor comes over, said, your knees are worse than what I thought, it's going to be 8 weeks. I did my maths. That would have brought me back the week before the grand final, had we made it. And I was like, if the team make the grand final, I'm not going to get picked. I'm not going to get, nor should I. If the team that gets us there are playing well, they deserve to get picked. But we got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs against Warrington. Lee Breers kicks a field goal. I'm working on the radio, my first time ever working in the radio space. And I just felt something come over me like, it's over. I'm done. I'd already had a chat to the coach. They had made me an offer to stay for another year, but he had spoken to me about coaching the next year. When he offered me that, I was like, yeah, I'm ready to move into that space. I'm ready to move on now. So went into coaching pre-season, as they do over at Leeds. They have a Boxing Day game against Wakefield. And they said, do you want to play? This can be your very last game. Farewell you. Which was awesome of Paul Caddick, the owner of Leeds, Gary Hetherington, the chief exec of Leeds, and Tony Smith, the coach at the time. I'm indebted to them to allow me to do that. It was my way, and I think players want to do this when we talk about going out on your own sword. You want to prep that last game, you want to go through that knowing that that's your last game, the last ever time you go through your routine. And Boxing Day 2006, that was 2005. That was 2006. That was my last one, and lucky enough that Ryan Hall, one of the greatest try scorers in Super League history, scored his first try.
Oh, true.
Scored his first try in the corner, and I got the chance to farewell by kicking the goal from the sideline.
Oh, no.
And that was my bow out, and that was me done, and so happy. And to this day, no regrets. No regrets about finishing. And as I said, mentally I was ready to move on and go into coaching, and loved my time and cutting my teeth at Leeds for 4 years as both the reserve grade coach and an assistant was a grounding that I think every young coach needs to go through to set yourself up. So, the transition from playing to coaching was an easy one, made easy. I've got to say this because of my mates that I played with. They were so respectful of my change in position that they knew that as a coach, I wasn't going to be their mate as such, and decisions were going to be made. There were two of us. Francis Cummings was the other assistant, who was also a player who'd finished the year before me, but they were so respectful, that group, in so many ways, and helping my transition from their teammates sitting in the dressing room to being upstairs in the coaching office. So, that was important.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Especially I can picture it in my head, that that last moment, and sounds. I know I like to make things out to be like a movie, bro, but that sounds like a movie. Your journey from Auckland, from Marist to Auckland, over to Australia, and then over to Europe, to the UK to play. So many 4, 5, 6, 7 years over in England, and then you hang up the boots, you get into coaching. Just briefly, but how was that coaching experience for you? I believe you went to 3 or coached at 3 clubs.
I'd like to say 3. No, a few more.
Yeah.
I went from Leeds to Warrington.
Yep.
Where we won the Challenge Cup in 2014, I think. 2012. 2012. We won the Challenge Cup, made the grand final for the first time for the Warrington Wolves. Did 4 years, and then I went to Hull KR for a couple of seasons, where again, 2015, against all odds, we beat Warrington in the semi-final at Headingley in an amazing afternoon to make the cup final.
Oh.
We got beat 50-0 in the cup final against Leeds, but that was such an achievement to get there with that team that we had. There's so many learnings to come out of it. And after that, I went to Salford.
Yep.
Did a year at Huddersfield, and then I went back to Hull KR before I went back to Wakefield to finish off my coaching while I was there. But quite fortunate to be around, especially Leeds and Warrington, flush with money, full of all the resources needed, full of top-line players, but then to go to Hull KR and especially Salford, where there's not a lot of money, you don't have the same caliber of player. That was where I took most of my learnings as a coach. Going back and really having to work, easy working with internationals, easy to work with the Danny Badierises and the Danny Maguires at Leeds. You know what I mean? It's when you get the young up and coming players who are still learning about the game, learning about themselves, and you as a coach trying to guide them and teach them. That was where I felt I really grew as a coach. So you look back at those big teams, and think grand finals and Challenge Cup finals and all those trophies you get to lift. The real wins are sometimes the personal ones at the lower clubs. You know, you might not make the finals, but you're making some real successes and inroads that people don't necessarily see. That's what I was really proud of going back, and that's what I took away from going back. Sometimes it was, where's our computers, or where's this kit, where's this, where's that?
Yep.
You just got to make do, and you got to adjust. And the true effort of sometimes of coaching was trying to work around some of that to try and get the same result, to get the most out of a player and a group with as little as you have.
You have a favourite group or team that you coached?
No, they're all very different. They're all very, very different. Obviously, I have an affection for that group at Leeds because I played with them, and probably the group that I still associate with, as ex-players and ex-teammates. No, not really. Not really one particular. That's like picking your favourite child.
Yep. Journalist question. That was my journalist question for you. Try and trap you in a corner. But that sounds awesome, bro. So you hang up the boots in the coaching, in the coaching aspect, and you decide to leave England after spending 25 years there. Talk to us a little bit about that journey, that decision that you and your family wanted to move back to New Zealand after so long and live here full time.
Yeah, 16 years I think I coached.
Oh, yeah.
17 years. And I asked my wife at the start of it to give me 10. To give me 10 years to try and be a head coach. And we'll see where it goes from there. 16 years she gave me. And on the 17th year, I got to coach Wakefield. And unfortunately, things didn't go as we planned. They decided to move on, which is their prerogative. And for a little while during those 16 years, she had been asking about moving back, coming home, and, more to try and see what it was like for us. And we were at a point in our lives that if we didn't do it at that time, we probably would never have done it. And that question would have hung over us for a while. And as you see throughout my career, we weren't afraid to move and try things.
Yep.
and answer questions straight away. So when the time came to move away from Wakefield Trinity, we had a discussion, and we saw it as a door opening for us to come back and move back home. It was a tough decision. We had to sit down with our sons. One had been back here, and he was back here already. Spoke to the boys, and they're old now. They were old at the time and old enough to make their own decisions. And they decided to stay, which made it even tougher. But again, we had that itch that we wanted to scratch. And we made our journey back here. So after 25 years, decided to pack up, give it a crack. We had nothing to come back to other than family.
Mm.
And we just saw it as a blank canvas. And I had, during the 2022 World Cup, done some TV journalism, some broadcasting, some commentary. Been doing radio since that Warrington game back in 2006.
Yep.
So I've been doing radio ever since. And I decided to try and explore that avenue of my life and see if any doors could open. And had a chat to Jerry Siusu at the Warriors, who is fantastic with all the ex-players. And I'd been back about a month or so, and he said, "Willie, what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'd really like to explore the radio and see how it goes broadcasting." And fortunately enough, he said, "I know Don Mann, who's in charge of PMN." Who's PMN? I knew who 531 PI was because my dad listened to it.
Yep.
Sat down, had a chat to Don. A couple of days later, he said, "Come into the office," introduced me to Louis, who was in charge of or the on-air staff or the announcers. They had a chat about a sports show, and here we are. Here we are today. Our little sports show that started for 2 hours on a Saturday morning, branched into 3 hours now, and from doing a little video edit and having Ruti come in and film a little segment to having you in, to doing overtime with Matty, and here we are, our awesome little podcast that's been flying this year, and it's been an honour to be part of this. I've learned so much about this industry, about myself, and to be able to work for an amazing organisation that took a punt on me, that threw me a lifeline and gave me an opportunity to learn and chase something that I'm now passionate about. Passionate about our Pacifica community learning about what I'm passionate about, which is sport. So, yeah, that's how I ended up here.
It's been an honour to rub shoulders with you, bro. And in this context with the media space, I remember we take you to some of the media scrums throughout the year, and just being on the other side of it as a journalist or as a part of the media, because often when you're over in England, and you'd know this too, that you were being the one fronted by the media. You know, you'd be the one answering questions. So it's been an honour, bro, just to come and chat sport and just to come pick your brains throughout the year and really get to know you. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I know you say you don't like being called a legend, bro, but you know, in my eyes, you're one of the role models of our community in this Pacific space, wanting to, you know, not only uplift and support our communities in sports and rugby league as a coach, but as a father and a husband as well. You've done an outstanding job to make that transition back into New Zealand. You know, after a pattern career, and I've seen you in sprinkles of you know, on podcasts, bro. You've done commentary for the Warriors as well. You made some, like you said, some appearances on Sky TV too. So it's been a busy year for you, bro. Busy past year since you've moved back. But you know, it's been a real honor just to chop it up with you this morning, bro. Now just to wrap it up and wrap up our chat. We've gone through your whole career, your whole life in rugby league. It's a lengthy chat, bro, and it's a lengthy career. You've done so much. You've done pretty much everything you can do in the rugby league context, bro. So out of all that we've chatted about this morning, is there something that you're most proudest of throughout your career and your time as the juniors, as a player, as a coach, as a broadcaster too? Yeah, what would you say would be one of your most proudest moments?
In life, being a good husband and being a good father. That was my biggest job, and that was my motivation once we had children and once I got married, for doing everything that I did. And I tried to do it to the best that I could because of them. And I chase a little bit of my dream now, whilst it's just me and my wife, but that's my purpose. That's still my purpose. And hopefully I've done them proud. I made my family proud throughout my journey. I know I've not always trodden the path that people would have wanted me to, and I've slipped over a couple of times, but hopefully I've been able to pick myself up, dust myself off, and walk a straighter line, so to speak. But yeah, hopefully that's something I want to be proudest of, and I am proud of making my wife and my children proud of me.
Awesome, bro. Thanks for that, man. And now to all our listeners listening, if you don't know, now you know. That's Willie Poching, Samoan rugby league sporting legend. I'm going to keep referring that to you now, just because I know you don't like it, bro. But yeah, thanks again for you know, answering it with such poise and such honor, bro. I know it was a lengthy chat, but you've had a pattern career and you know, as a young Pacifica person that's been involved in rugby league, but also been in close proximity to the community that you grew up with. It's an honor to chat and to unpack a little bit about your journey.
Thank you, Matty, and it's been an honor to sit here. And as you said at the top of the show, this is about giving you, our audience members, an insight into myself. Next week, we get an insight into Matty. I'll be asking him some questions and putting him under the spotlight, and we'll get to know a little bit about the path that Matty's walked to being here on Overtime with us. That's been Overtime for another week. Thank you very much for joining us. Where can they see this?
You can see this on our Overtime Spotify account. You can see all the episodes. This will be episode 16 that comes out this week. You can also see it on our 531PI YouTube channel as well. And stay tuned on the Overtime.Pacific Grandstand Instagram and also on TikTok as well. We can see our clips and you see us chop it up about the greatest things in sports. We've got laughs, we've got chats, we've got everything. So thank you for your support throughout the past 16 episodes.
And if you want, you can tune in to Pacific Grandstand with Overtime, where we'll chat about the All Blacks. We'll talk about the NRL finals coming up here this Saturday morning from 8 o'clock till 11. That's 531PI, station bringing Pacific people together. I'm Willie Poching.
Matt Manukor.
Have a fantastic week and we'll see you next week.
Wow, me.